Hi guys, this is the Wookie. Welcome to the second special that we've done for the Bigfooty Podcast. This particular one is on the drug saga at Essendon, and with us for this is the prosecutor from the Essendon supporter group, and he's taking questions from myself and Messenger and the old Dark Navies and Chief and Jamie Johnston. So sit back and hopefully you find this informative.
When are we going to come to the unfortunate matter of the Asada investigation? Because I've only really got one question on it for you, prosecutor. And do you believe there is an element of the personality cult at work with James Hird and elements, a very large element, I would argue, of the Essendon support?
Oh, well, obviously he's a trusted figure, and he's a figure that's been, he's really been equated with success at the Essendon Football Club for the last 15, 20 years. So he's definitely, obviously, he's going to have the benefit of the doubt. And until evidence really presents itself to otherwise, I think Essendon supporters have the right to, stand by him. I know the Stand By Hird campaign got a lot of it got a lot of angst from opposition supporters and, mockery. But yes, but it was more based on standing by, her with these allegations when he couldn't really fight back, as opposed to saying, he's completely innocent. And I think that's the thoughts of most Essendon supporters, that we're standing by them until we can get, all the findings back from the investigation, and then can make an informed decision rather than, adhering to the lynch mob.
I noticed that there's no hashtag for Stand By Tomo or Stand By Ian Robson or Stand By Paul Hamilton or anybody else who might have been involved in this. It seemed to me, as much as opposition supporters
are focused on...
Well, this is true, and they've got a full head of hair. I mean, that's something to talk about. But as much as opposition supporters are focused on Hird, so too the Essendon supporters seem to have got around Hird rather than anybody else in the organisation, and I think that's where the cult of personality feeling comes from. Is that they're centred on protecting James Hird.
Well, I think James Hird's the figure for all this. So it's not so much just James Hird in particular, but it's his face, it's his reputation and all that sort of stuff. That's the main. It's, the red to the bull, so to speak, when it comes to the media and all that sort of stuff. So we've got Caroline Wilson, Patrick Smith and all that calling for his resignation. So I guess he's really the figurehead in all this. If we defend that line, then, everything else falls behind him. So nothing else will fall. So I don't think it's so much just defending him blindly. I think it's just the front line of the defence, really. And then everything else falls back from there.
There's a cliche in footy that says that no one's bigger than the club. And at North Melbourne 11 years ago, you may be aware, Wayne Carey and the vice-captain's missus had a bit of an affair and so on. And Carey was
serious?
What?
I know,
serious?
It's hard to believe. Why wasn't I told?
Kept it pretty hidden.
No wonder I couldn't get in the bathroom that night.
The point of it is that North got rid of Carey and said, look, no one's bigger than the club. Is Hird bigger than the club? Or I'd suggest that in the minds of many Essendon supporters, Hird has become the club. The two are inseparable in the minds of many Essendon supporters. Is there for you, prosecutor, a point at which you have to say, well, James, can you at least stand aside until you've had the opportunity to clear your name? Robson wasn't given that. We've had Ziggy Swatowski and his report and so on. What makes James so much more different that he can be seen to be not bigger than the club, but somehow also bigger than the club?
Well, I don't think he's bigger than the club. I think he's the individual at the moment that represents the club. So I think Essendon supporters are going to stand by him, because I think the difference between Carey and Hird, apart from obviously what actually happened, is that I think Carey's was a pretty open and shut case of what actually happened. Whereas with Hird, this is obviously a much deeper thing. There's who knew what, who didn't know what was actually known. So I think Essendon supporters are just going to stand by him until obviously something else comes out that suggests that they shouldn't. As for him being bigger than the club, I don't think he is. I don't think any Essendon supporter truly believes that. Do we want him to go? No, but if the investigation comes out and it shows that, he was very much negligible and he was, willingly involved in a program that was giving performance enhancing drugs, sorry. Then,
drugs.
Just any
Erotic
type of drug.
supplements.
Yes, we'll call them we'll call them substances. Sounds much better, doesn't it? Then yes, I think then obviously Essendon supporters will have to reconsider, and we'll go from there.
Where's that burden of proof? I mean, where's the tipping point for you guys as far as you want conclusive charges laid and proven in a court of law, or proven without any doubt at all that this has all taken place and Heard knew about it, or are you happy for it to sort of come to a grinding halt based on a series of technicalities and sort of not having that last 10% of conclusive proof, and would you consider that to be vindication, or would you consider that to be lucky if they don't get to find that final nail?
Look, I think it really does come down to what actually comes out in that report. Obviously, it's difficult to say right now what our reaction will be when we don't know what's actually in that report. So I guess it all comes down to the context of what comes out of it, and I guess, yeah, so I think it's a play-by-ear sort of thing, and to say now what our reaction should be and, given any given scenario is just not really for this time and place.
Yeah.
So the things that are leaked into the media, and there's a substantial circumstantial case building up around this in the media, does that shake your confidence at all?
It doesn't really shake the confidence because, as I said, the club has brought us so much success over the last 140 years. But obviously, there was a good time in 1897. I enjoyed it muchly. I was there, but no. So they've brought us a lot of success, well, recently as well, and I think they've earned our trust until it's been shown otherwise. So, yeah, we're just going to stand by the club, and what happens, and then we'll deal with it from there.
And that's fair enough. But just on the amount of success and everything, and the trust that you place in the board because of that, I think as Carlton people, and there's a number of us on this particular panel.
Not me.
There is.
There are.
Not me.
I said there's a number. I didn't say we all are. We've had the exact same level of success as you guys have. To the point. But
Tune out, guys.
We did beat GWS on the weekend.
Yeah. We've won the same number of premierships, even if we've actually won more actual grand finals. But
God.
I
was lied to.
What I'm getting at is that there doesn't seem to be the same level of accountability being levelled at board level. You've had your governance support and everything, and yes, you've fired Ian Robson or he's retired, and people have gone, but there doesn't seem to be the same amount of angst from the Essendon supporter group towards the board that there is, say, that we had when our board massively stuffed up in 2000. And I don't get how that can be the case. I mean, on the one hand, the governance report openly came out and said, look, we experimented on our players in a way that's not really appropriate. I don't get how Essendon people can just sit back and go, well, that's okay, we'll just wait for the Asada report now and we'll see what happens. I don't get that mentality.
Well, look at what happened when, say the early 2000s and that sort of thing. We weren't travelling too well at Carlton. But start of this year, Essendon had been travelling well, and everyone's like, stick with success, go for it, love it, support it. This is from my point of view. If Essendon had been down the bottom of the ladder, I think there would have been the same vicious reaction. You've stuffed up and you can't even win bloody football.
And in a similar example, in a similar example to what you were just saying then, it's a bit like you compare the of Gary Ablett Jr. leaving Geelong and Tom Scully leaving Melbourne. Like, as in, Geelong have had the success, and Gary Ablett had the success at the club, so they're a lot more forgiving. Whereas Tom Scully with Melbourne, there was hatred. And I think it's a similar situation here. Obviously, the results sort of soften up the edges in a bit. So, I mean, we've got something to enjoy. We can go to the football each weekend and, see us be competitive. Whereas if we weren't being competitive, then a lot of angst would be directed towards the board, and a lot more than we're seeing now. And a lot more will probably still come. But at this stage, I think it's also a football department issue, as well as obviously the CEO being accountable. But to say that David Evans and some of the other board members should be accountable, I think it's a bit of a stretch.
Who should be accountable then? Who should be accountable for the running of football at Essendon? Where does the buck stop?
I think the buck stops with the CEO, especially when it comes to the football department matters. It was Ian Robson's job to oversee that. This is going to get Jamie very excited when I name some of these names. It was Paul Hamilton, who was head of the football department. Obviously, and of course you got Dean Robinson as head of the fitness department, and of course you got James Hurd too. And
what's he the head of? Which department?
He's head coach, obviously. So yes. So there's a lot of people, and it's a big chain. So, and I think that's one of the things to come out of the Switkowski report is that this obviously chain of command has to be a lot clearer. And I personally believe it should stop with the CEO. And of course, Ian Robson's gone now, and Ray Gunston's come in. But of course, Paul Hamilton's gone. Dean Robinson's stood down, won't be coming back. The club hates him. And James Hurd obviously is still up in the air. So I don't think the angst should be really directed at the board per se, obviously the CEO, but as the collective, I don't think so.
Okay, fair enough. So I think we'll move along a little bit. It was starting to get a little bit heated there for a moment.
No, I just like to reassure prosecutor in the way that I do understand you guys you're gonna stick with your team until there's no reason to stick with them anymore, and that's the heart of being a supporter. And at the end of the day, what you said about success rings true. At our very core, we're about the on-field stuff, not the off-field stuff.
Exactly.
But when the club does something that affects your on-field performance and affects your ability to win games, that's when the supporters will turn back towards their own board and start looking inwardly for somebody to be accountable. So I totally understand it. Until if all this came out in the wash and you guys were found guilty of something and you were stripped of points or players or suspended or whatever, I expect that the Essendon supporter ire would eventually turn around and go, okay, now you've cost me my enjoyment of the game for a little while. Time to go.
Well, just as well as this, I went to a supporter function the other day at Windy Hill, and speaking to the players, the mood's confident. The players believe that nothing ill toward has actually happened. The interviews were just finishing up at that stage, and the club is confident that they're going to come out of this. Obviously not. They're going to get a whack from the AFL. I don't think anyone's that naive to suggest that won't happen. But as when it comes to player bans and all that sort of stuff, the club's confident that there will be no bans, and we'll dodge the eye of the storm.
Do you think you did anything wrong, personally?
Did you personally administer drugs?
No. Do you
Well,
your
I've got to
personal
make a list
opinion?
somehow.
Your personal opinion? Did Essendon do anything wrong, apart from the governance issues? I mean, do you think that they took any substance they shouldn't have taken?
Well, I can't really say that because all that would be based on his conjecture and hearsay.
Yeah.
But I do agree though that there was serious failures in obviously the system and how it was set up, and that obviously questions do have to be answered and people do have to be held responsible. Who those people are still has to be obviously decided too.
What
Can
does
you
your
say-
gut instinct say? Yes,
Yeah.
did they take it or did they not? What, your personal opinion?
Did they take it? Obviously I think they did take the AOD, but of course I think everyone and the players and the club have also know that they took that. But I guess the question comes down to the legality, and it's just a minefield there. So
Legality, you mean whether ASADA gave some sort of permission or assurance that it was okay, or legality as far as it was provided by a compounding chemist, or legality as far as
look, I don't think anything's going to come out of the this dank letter. I think that's, as Jared Waitley said, some letters aren't worth what they're written on, the paper they're written on. But as for the loopholes, I think Essendon's definitely going to go after them, and obviously any club will do it in the same circumstance. Yep. And what comes out of them? I mean, there was a report from you'll be able to tell me this, Jamie. Is it Baker and Mitchell from the Age?
Baker and McKenzie, yeah. Richard Bacon, yeah.
Yeah. They had in one of their articles, they said that the ASADA believed that their case is weak on the AOD substance. Of course, that comes back, though, whether there was any other substances. And what was it, thiamism or... I can't remember.
Thiamicin, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah. Whether that was the legal variety or the illegal variety. And, of course, there's just too much to talk. Like, there's too many substances rumoured. None of us really know what was taken, what was not taken. Because, I mean, at first it was human growth hormone we were accused of taking, and it's kind of, tampered away from that. But just, I guess it exemplifies that we don't really know what they've taken, and to guess would just be naive, really.
Do you not feel a bit uncomfortable that substances that weren't past fit for human consumption were given to the players?
Okay, I think there's a clear distinction we need to make there. I think it's fit for human consumption. It's just not approved for therapeutical use, which is why it's under that Section 0. So I think it's safe. It's been going to be used as a food additive. Clinical trials showed, no ill effects. So if you're using it on the players, obviously it shouldn't have been used, but as health concerns, I'm not too fussed about it, and neither the players.
Okay. Any further final comments from you guys on this?
I'm just wondering if Essendon, if this all goes down with Essendon find the loophole they're looking for, will Essendon supporters feel vindicated, and do they believe that they'll be sort of branded or tarred for life over this incident?
When it comes to the tarring part, I don't think that's going to affect anyone. I mean, Carlton supporters have been living with the salary cap cheap things for ages. Yep. Sydney supporters deal with the cost of living. Collingwood have the human growth hormone rumours. Hawthorn have the injunction. St Kilda have the off-field scandal. I mean, every club has it.
Essendon have the salary cap cheating.
Yeah.
Okay, we've stopped talking about Essendon now. So, yeah, North Melbourne have their, affairs and pretty much everything else. But, of course, every club has something, and it's not going to affect Essendon supporters. I mean, even at the games, I haven't heard too much about it. And the only things I do see is some smart aleck who thinks that writing the same, they got plenty of pep in their step. They think they're funny and original, where it's said every week, and Essendon supporters get used to it. It is.
Can I use that next?
You may.
Thanks.
I'm writing this down.
In a step.
I'm just interested.
I swear, if you look at the opposition thread that who play Essendon, there will always be one post that has stuff like Pep, Tide, all in capital letters, trying to be subtle, but with no subtlety and no originality at all. It's quite hilarious though, because they all think that they're the first to do it. Yeah, just stuff like that. Inject some pace into the midfield, all this sort of stuff. It's fantastic.
Don't be a prick.
It does seem to me...
Don't needle us, all right?
Is that Jamie?
It does seem to me, just on that point, that the scramble for the moral high ground that goes on from Essendon, I'd say from the board level and CEO level down to the average big footy punter, it is a bit hypocritical at some junctures, given that Essendon supporters, as is their prerogative, have had absolutely no problem dishing it out to St Kilda, to North, to Hawthorn, to Collingwood over the various things. Yet now, sort of affecting a stance that we should all rise above this kind of thing. What I'd be interested to know is how long do you think it's honestly going to drag out for? Because there were reports in the media in the last week or two where Asada was starting to talk years rather than months.
Okay.
How much longer can it go on for, just out of academic interest?
Okay, I'll address the hypocrisy part first, and I'll refer you to the sympathy for Essendon thread on the North board, and hoping Essendon will fold hoping Essendon will fold after the 2007 North Gold Coast saga. So I think North supporters and every other team supporters is guilty of being hypocrites. I think that's just football. But
supporters.
Yes, the shining moral example.
Yeah.
Injunction.
Yes.
Have a sip of water, collect your thoughts.
But yes, on how long this could take, I think a clear distinction that needs to be made is that on that article, it was mentioned that the drugs in sport investigation could take years, which obviously covers all of the ACC report rather than just the the ACCC. Who cares? But yeah, so that's covering the whole report as opposed to just Essendon. I think the club expect a result, or at least the preliminary findings within a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, once you include legal defences and trials and all that sort of stuff, it could go on for a year or two or longer. But as in players potentially receiving infraction notices and stuff like that, I think that's months at most, not years.
I don't think that'll happen for what it's worth, but anyway.
At the end of which, the AFL will just sit down and go, well, we'll just bring it all under disrepute and fine Essendon $500,000 and pretend nothing happened.
I think it will be significantly more than 500 grand, but yes, that's probably disrepute.
$2 million, 2 years of draft picks, and Jimmy Hurd and the players skate. I think that's what'll happen.
I think that was my suggestion too.
That's probably not a far off guess either. Yeah.